It was the golden hour. The sun was setting when the priest read the verdict that the defendant, Kiska, should be thrown into the Katarov dungeon for his crime. The man started shivering in fear as he said the accusation was false, but the priest told him to stop talking nonsense. He told the guards to take the defendant away while the man on the side grinned as Kiska screamed that he was just framed. The guards pulled him, but he was still telling them that he was being framed for what he did not do. He cursed inside his head. They are in the Katarov village, where Kiska was born and raised. This village was known for its S-rank dungeon called Katarov Dungeon. Because of this, many adventurers went there to try to clear it. While most people his age were on the path to being an adventurer, Kiska was working as a farmer. He was devastated by the state of his farm. It was all ruined. Out of nowhere, a group of guys called him. The man who looked like an ex-con was Darga, head of the village's kids. He mockingly said he heard from his dad that his harvest would be poor this year. Kiska couldn't speak because he knew it was them who wrecked and ruined his plants. All he could do was bow his head and apologize to him. In their country, people with a silver hair like his are called alks. Those alks were bullied and isolated from the society because an alk had betrayed the country before and helped the demons. Darga looked disgusted by him, so he just punched him in the face. Kiska was already getting used to being hit and getting his fields ruined by now. He couldn't do anything to stop these people from bugging and hurting him. He had no choice but to endure it till the end, so when Darga's group went off after a few minutes, Kiska went down to the village. As he walked, he came across a woman with a sweet, calming smile. The girl asked if Darga had bullied him again, and this girl's name was Namia. She told Kiska to sit on the side for a while to treat his wounds. Namia was his childhood friend and the only person in the village who was close to him. When Namia was done, Kiska thanked her. She sighed and wondered why those people didn't like him. He smiled bitterly as he had his silver hair, which was disgusting, but she said she found his hair color cool and beautiful. Kiska was shocked by it. He did not expect someone to accept his hair color, and he did not even love it. To Kiska, his hair brings him bad luck, but knowing Namia accepts him no matter what makes him smile. Namia took a deep breath to build up courage. She called his name and closed her eyes to release her breath. She revealed to him that she would be marrying Darga. That news made his eyes widen and his mouth drop. He didn't know how to react to this. Even Namia couldn't look him in the eyes. Kiska chuckled awkwardly, forcing a smile, and congratulated them for their marriage. But Namia was surprised by his reaction. She gulped and asked him if he was alright with it. Kiska was caught off guard and couldn't respond, so she asked him if he was planning to live in this village forever. When he said yes, Namia grasped her skirt tightly. She told him he should leave the town because everyone there bullies and hurts him. Kiska sighed and said he had nowhere else to go. This was what he had called his home ever since he was born. After a few seconds of silence, Namia held his wrist tightly and asked him to elope with her. Kiska's face brightened from a glimpse of hope. Namia said she had some savings at her house that would be enough to live off of when they ran away. Kiska asked if she really wanted this, so she said yes. She added that she doesn't want to marry someone like that bully. He remained looking at her. He grabbed her face, said he loved her and kissed her. Namia responded and said she loved her also. And when the night came, Kiska was already done preparing his things. He closed the door and walked out with a bag on his shoulder. This night would be the moment he and Namia would leave the village. He was so happy as he ran because his dark days there would be over. The moon was bright that night, and when he got to Namia's house, he felt a shiver down his spine when he heard her screaming. Namia was telling someone to stop, so Kiska sprinted inside the house upon recognizing her voice. He didn't even realize he could run this fast. When he got to the door where he could hear Namia, he opened it and was horrified by her state. Darga's group was all half naked. They were shocked to see Kiska inside, so Darga glared at him, asking why the silver hair was there. Kiska, with a shaking voice, asked what they were doing. Darga scoffed and said he could already see it. When Kiska looked at Namia, she was crying and looked helpless, so he told Darga to move. He got confused by Kiska's sudden change of attitude. He got caught off guard and received a blow on his cheeks. Kiska told him to hurry and move aside. Darga cursed him as he wiped his cheeks and returned the punch double to his stomach. Kiska's body began trembling in pain. Darga swung his knee and smashed his face with it. The other two moved closer to help Darga and started kicking him. Kiska fell on the floor as he tried to block them. Namia begged them to stop, but they did not listen. Darga suddenly remembered asking Kiska why he had gone there to his fiancée's house. His angry face made Kiska flinch because they would be dead if he knew about their plan. He kept his mouth closed, so Darga gave a sign to his friends to hold the silver-haired boy on the wall. They followed him, so Darga moved to Kiska's hand, pinched his nail, and without any say, he plucked it out. The surge of pain rushed through his system, making him scream from the bottom of his lungs. Namia held her mouth in shock as Darga pulled another one. But when Kiska kept himself from saying why he went there, Darga smirked and said he would pull another one. Namia couldn't take it anymore and stopped them. Darga looked at her confusedly, so she said she would tell them the truth and that, in return, they would stop hurting him. Kiska screamed and told Namia not to do it, but Darga punched him in the face and told him to shut his trap. He looked at her worriedly, begging Namia not to tell them inside his head. But she revealed the truth. After knowing their eloping plan, Darga's men continued to hurt and punch him, but despite being hurt, he kept his eyes glued to Namia. Darga was furious. His eyes went dark, and he lifted Namia by her neck. She looked at Kiska and gave him a last glimpse of her smile before he passed out. That was what happened that night. Kiska was now being brought to the portal for his punishment for taking advantage of the absence of Namia's parents, infiltrating, raping, and murdering. With all these crimes put on his head, he was about to be sent to the Katarov dungeon. Kiska had no more energy left to tell them he was just framed for doing those crimes when it was Darga who did it all. All of this bastard's action was pinned on him. The priest asked if he had any last words, but Kiska remained silent because even if he told them the truth, the false testimony from those monkeys and the appearance of the head of the village made it useless. He was feeling hopeless. The priest declared that the execution would now commence and ordered the guards to cut the rope. The guard took a blade and cut off the rope from his wrists. Darga chuckled and said that, with rope or not, Kiska would end up lifeless there. Tisa heard it and couldn't agree more because no one had ever returned alive after using this portal. The priest told the men to let him go, so they pushed him to the magic circle. When he stood there for a few seconds, the mark on the floor slowly lit up. The immense magic mana burst out from the ground. He closed his eyes, dripping with tears, and all he could feel was hatred towards all of them who did not listen to his testimony. He gritted his teeth as he pictured their grinning faces, and in a blink, Kiska was teleported inside the dungeon. He was lying on the ground when he woke up. He immediately stood up and realized where he was. The place was like a maze. He figured he was already inside the S-rank dungeon, the Katarov dungeon. His heart started racing when he heard a loud growling sound nearby. He heard heavy footsteps coming from the corner, and when he saw a huge fury creature with armor on its body, his eyeballs almost fell on the ground in shock because he had only heard about this bugbear from adventurers and didn't expect to encounter one. It charged towards him when it spotted him, so Kiska ran away immediately, but he was too slow. He screamed in fear when he saw its fist coming to him, so he jumped off and tripped to the floor. He started screaming for help as he crawled backward, and suddenly, a mysterious shadow emerged from the ground. The shadow asked if he would like to be saved. Despite the suspicious-looking shadow, Kiska said yes and begged it to save his life. The shadow turned into a beautiful woman and said she would grant him a skill. Her hand beamed brightly, and something flashed before his eyes. A hologram saying he had gained a save and reset skill. When the woman disappeared, the fear went back as he saw the bugbear before him. He called the woman, asking how he could use the skill, but it was too late. The monster lifted its fist and swung it at his face. His jaw clicked and got fractured. With one punch, he was thrown in the air and perished instantly. The bear hug left him, but suddenly he opened his eyes without any wounds. He was shocked and looked around. He scanned his hands and thought he should be gone by now. He kept wondering why his useless life was still intact. He looked behind and got punched in the face in a few seconds. He flew to the ground and perished again. He woke up and was still dumbfounded at how he came back to life after that. He couldn't believe what was happening to him. He looked behind him again and got punched in the face. He groaned in pain while he wondered why this was happening to him. He gasped when he woke up. He looked at his body, and again, while he was too occupied, the bugbear got to him and punched him in the face. Everything went black, and when he woke up, his thoughts started processing it. He looked at the monster and figured that every time he died, he went back a moment before he perished. The girl gave him the skill, and he knew he would keep getting killed. He gasped for air the moment he woke up. Sweat was dripping from his face as he thought he would get crushed to death repeatedly if this continued. He ran away desperately, but even if he tried to escape, the monster could always catch him and find a way to crush him until he lost his life. He tried many things repeatedly, and I lost count. He tried to dodge any way he could think of, but the result was still the same. He started hoping that somebody would stop this and finish his life permanently so he wouldn't feel this pain. When he regained consciousness, he thought of activating the hologram to try to turn it off to get out of this hell. He summoned the hologram and saw his status and skill. He touched it and got nervous because he didn't know how to turn it off. He kept trying, but suddenly he froze. All of his memories flooded inside his mind. The bright smile Namia gave. Those people in the village hurt Namia and disregarded him. He pondered if all of his hatred would disappear if he did this. He gritted his teeth, and after a change of heart, he ran to the bugbear and cursed it. But luckily, he managed to dodge the first swing. He couldn't believe he moved closer to the monster without even thinking. Even if he managed to avoid it, the second attack got him and crushed him to death. Again, before he passed, he smirked happily for his small success. He had lost track of how many times he perished. Maybe more than 100 times. He knew the bugbear would swing its right arm first, so he squatted to avoid it. Its next attack was with its left arm, so he rolled to the monster's right. He immediately hopped behind it quickly. Kiska could try to escape now, but he would get killed easily, so he remained calm and remembered its next move. He dodged to the right to evade its arms, which would be the perfect timing to punch it with its arms on the floor. He smashed his fist to its face swiftly, and this is the fruit of suffering more than 100 times. He ran immediately because the bugbear could recover quickly from his weak attack. He had already figured he would only have 25 seconds before it woke up, so he had to find a way to handle this situation. He ran to the corner and came across a pile of random things. He rummaged around the pile and found nothing useful. He panicked when he heard the monster pop out of the corner, so he stopped what he was doing and ran quickly. He dashed forward, but suddenly, the floor he stepped on made a clicking sound. In a blink, the floor opened. He screamed as he fell into a trap and perished. So far, Kiska has tried this around 200 times. He fought the monster many times, so his movements were getting faster. He learned that by attacking the bugbear's eyes, he could get 35 seconds after. As he ran, he knew the places of the traps ahead of him, so he became careful. He stopped right before the trap. He could only move up to this point, but when the bugbear was getting near him, he bit his lips and built up the courage to jump. He stepped into the trap. He held his breath as he was falling down. Blood came out of his small scratch, but he was still alive. His body was shaking in fear, but he was relieved that he finally succeeded. He looked above and saw the bugbear growling at him. He chuckled and looked at the hidden room he saw. He walked there slowly and went through the hole. It was pretty dark inside, but he continued crawling until he saw the end. When he got out of the hole, he was inside a room with a treasure chest in the center. He looked around as he went closer. He opened it slowly and cautiously and saw a huge gem sitting on its stand. After touching it, he gasped in shock when a hologram said he had acquired the Crystal of Wisdom. A list of skills ranging from D rank to S rank flashed before him. He scanned it and realized what it was. He was only allowed to choose one skill, so he read the description carefully. He looked at the A rank list, and the healing and fire magic caught his attention. He noticed the swordsmanship and archery skills, but that wouldn't work since Kiska didn't have any weapons at hand. The only ones left that would be useful to him would be in the S rank section. He looked at it and thought that acceleration skill might help him to escape quickly, but to survive, choosing stealth would be wiser. He picked the stealth, and his body felt warm in a matter of seconds. He felt his body lighter. The door from where he came in suddenly started closing. He panicked and was alarmed when the magical marks on the floor emerged. In shock, he was stoned to the floor as the numerous bugbears glared at him. He was surrounded by furious monsters growling at him. Kiska was dumbfounded at how these things got in there in a glimpse, and as expected, he was brought down in a swift with a single punch. After a few moments of being lifeless on the floor, he woke up. He looked around and realized he had returned from the start. He was getting frustrated but had no choice but to do it all over again. Kiska somehow managed to make it to the hidden room again. He opened the chest and looked at the list on the hologram. He gritted his teeth as he had to try it all over again. He picked the same skill, and after the spawn, he could see the monster's movements in slow motion. He had already perished 200 times by now after realizing that stealth was useless against bugbears. When he returned, he decided to choose acceleration skills. His movements got a lot quicker, so he managed to land a fatal punch on one of them. He was so happy, but he felt a tingling pain from his wrist. When he looked, he gasped in shock to see his broken wrist. He couldn't believe what he saw, so he did not realize the monsters coming at him. His body could not handle the impact of the acceleration skill. He cursed in his head as he woke up again. He was spawned back to the starting point, just like he thought, but he had made great progress from those numerous deaths. He thought of using acceleration to evade the bugbear's offense and have countless opportunities to strike back. He was too busy thinking about how he would use the acceleration to escape that hidden room, but the bugbear behind him smashed him on his head. After a total of 225 attempts, he was finally back in the hidden room. Kiska took 5 more deaths because he let his guard down. After choosing acceleration skill, the bugbears started spawning. They growled at him, so he smirked as he thought of his perfect plan. He activated his acceleration skill to initiate combat. However, things did not go as he planned. He cursed in the air as he evaded the monster's punches. He was in disbelief because he kept losing no matter what he did with the acceleration skills. He was trying his best, and yet the result was the same. He even tried to use his speed to aim for their eyes, but they endured it and counterattacked quickly. Sometimes, he went around and struggled one from behind, but another monster attacked and finished him. After all of those things he tried, he started to lose hope. He was starting to fear that this endless loop would exhaust him. After 300 attempts, his conclusion was that those S-rank skills were useless in this situation. All of the endings of those attempts were failures. He then returned to the hidden room in exhaustion. He sighed as he stared blankly at the hologram. He doesn't know what to do anymore with this list of skills. I am actually glad he doesn't keep the skills every time he dies. It keeps it from devolving into an OP easy power fantasy. He suddenly remembered the reason why he was still fighting. This sweet smile gave him butterflies until that monster came into the picture. Darga smirked at him, asking if he could come back to life. All Kiska could feel was hatred and anger inside his heart. He slammed the table and repeatedly said he hated that guy. If it hadn't been for this feeling, he would have given up a long time ago, so he pressed the body strengthening skill to try to use it to escape this dungeon and get his revenge. He heard the bugbears spawning sounds behind him, so he looked at them. Fueled by his desire for his revenge, he went straight to the monster and used the body strengthening skill. He explored how each skill works against the bugbears with every attempt, but the result doesn't change. Around Kiska's 440 attempts, he managed to get on top of one of the bugbears. He smirked and thought his attack, defense, and jumping power abilities had greatly improved balance. When the bugbear started growling, he looked below because this monster wasn't his opponent. He rolled in the air as he jumped and headed towards his target. When he got near his target, he smiled devilishly as he landed his kick on its head. The monster was defeated, but what surprised him was he had acquired some skill points. This was his first time encountering this. He was so excited and thought things were turning in his favor for the first time. He went to the farthest spot to check the hologram skill. He was glad to find out that he could raise his physical strengthening skill to level 2. He had gotten a little more enthusiastic as he dashed and evaded their attacks because he thought he would level up every time he defeated one. But when he remembered what was written on the hologram, he suddenly stopped. His hopes started to crumble as he realized he had to defeat them all to level up once more. He chuckled as he stared blankly in the air, not giving a damn care about his surrounding, so he got beaten up to a scrambled egg. By his attempt number 510, He was getting tired of this endless despair. He cursed in the air and started crying as he asked why this was happening to him. He cursed and said this was all Darga's fault. He gritted his teeth and said once he escaped, he would execute everyone who betrayed him in the village. Even if he said it, overcome with pain and exhaustion, his thoughts sank into despair. He was starting to give up on escaping this place. While his thoughts were occupied, his body reflex touched the screen and selected the provoke skill. He stopped crying and said it was an accident. He thought that skill would be useless in battle, but he had to try at least in kissing defeat without even trying. When the bugbears appeared, he looked at them with low energy. He was so tired, but since it was just a trial run, he decided to try it. He looked to the bugbear on his right and called it a dumb butt. He was still confused about how this skill worked, but the monster got furious and attacked him without even thinking. Luckily, Kiska managed to move to the side. He was dumbfounded by what happened and later realized he was between two bugbears. He provoked the bugbear on the right to come over. It growled and tried to attack him, but Kiska stepped back to evade it. Its claw slashed through the other monster's flesh, leading it to its defeat. Despite losing hope, he started chuckling, and that chuckle turned into a hilarious laugh that echoed around the room. He couldn't believe that all this happened with no effort. He thought all of his work was for nothing, and it somehow pissed him off. He smirked and had an idea to make everyone angry. After a few seconds of triggering some bugbears, the monsters started punching their kin. He was giggling as he called them assholes. Whenever they tried to attack him, Kiska stood before another monster so its attack would land on another bugbear. The fog had finally lifted. After a few seconds, Kiska went to the center. Bugbears surrounded him, so he called them Gorilla Glue to get them mad. The monsters released a deafening growl as they attacked, and after a few punches that were blinded by anger, the last two bugbears were left standing. He scoffed because his plan was finally working smoothly, and now he had to deal with these two. He put on an annoying face and called them stupid pigs, so the two were provoked and charged towards him. Kiska remained standing, not moving to wait for the perfect timing. When they got near, he leaned back, and eventually, their claws pierced through their flesh. Blood hissed and dripped from their deep wounds, leaving Kiska the last man standing. The bugbears were finally defeated. His accidental plan somehow worked, so he punched in the air for his victory. After 510 attempts, he finally won against them. Well, calling them names and insulting them to make them hurt each other would be cathartic for him. But all I could say was Kiska had some insane mental fortitude. When he left that room, all that happened to him was endless chasing and running. He was only getting tired by running from an rank headless mule that had come all the way from Brazil. Right after he stepped out of that room, this ham-looking monster appeared. Surviving those bugbears took him to a new level, but this monster roaming on this floor had already crushed him to bits 10 times in a row. He somehow got lucky because the respawn point from when he lost was updated in that room. Just as he thought he would not have to drive himself crazy, fighting those bugbears over and over makes his heart feel a little lighter. Right now, Kiska was running to a part he hadn't explored yet, and he was surprised to see 3 magical marks on the floor. He went closer and realized it was similar to the teleportation circle he used for getting there. He tried to tell the difference between them, but they were all the same. He decided to choose one. He sighed and thought it wouldn't matter since he could just try everything, and if he died, he could go back easily. The light from the magic circle covered him, and after a few seconds, he was teleported to the end of a hallway. It was a one-way forward, so he walked ahead. He walked carefully while keeping his guard up until he spotted something at the end of the hallway. He approached it and was surprised to see a girl surrounded by chains inside a capsule. He looked closer and realized this familiar face was the same girl who gave him the skill. He wasn't sure, but he observed the barrier around her. He looked back at her and started to reach her. When the tip of his finger touched the barrier, it turned into shattering glass. The girl started to fall, making Kiska nervous because all he did was touch it. He watched the girl fall on the floor while his mouth was wide open in disbelief. He shook his head to wake himself up and asked the girl if she was okay. The girl moved up and looked at him confusedly. She stared at him for a second and realized he must have awoken her. After hearing her voice, he confirmed she was the one who gave him the skill, so he asked who she was. The girl stood up first to face him. She smiled and said her name was Aja Hatsubaki, an ex-hero who got sealed away there. He was surprised, but she asked for his name, so he immediately said it was Kiska. She smiled brightly and said it was a nice name. She suddenly realized something and asked him to bend down a little. Despite being confused as to why she wanted him to get down, he followed it shyly. His eyes widened when Ajaha suddenly gave him a peck on his lips. He was shocked and quickly moved away, wiping off his lips. He asked what she was doing, but she explained it was her thank you gift. Kiska couldn't look at her in the eyes, embarrassed and confused about what this girl was trying to do. She called him and asked if he wanted to get out of this place. He nodded and said yes, so Ajaha smiled and grabbed his wrist. She pulled him up and told him to come with her because she would get him out of there. They went back to the floor when the horse, looking ham-like, was running around, and in a swift, Ajaha walked through the monster and chopped its body like she was slicing butter. Kiska was amazed by how she took the Arank mule in an instant. She looked at him and asked if he thought she was strong. Kiska nodded and said yes. She giggled and smiled upon hearing a compliment. Kiska looked at her and thought that if he stuck with her, he might have a chance to escape this hell. Ajaha pointed her hand on the meat of the mule and started storing them. He walked closer and asked what she was doing. She showed the bright circle called Item Box skill, which allowed her to store and withdraw anything at any time. He remembered seeing that skill in the S rank section inside that hidden room. When she was finished, they continued walking. Ajaha said there was a room with the dungeon's mini-boss. He gasped in shock and asked if she would go fight it head-on. She nodded, saying they had to beat it to move forward, leaving Kiska speechless. Ajaha added that she would still be stuck and sealed away if it weren't for him. Kiska realized she was just being grateful to him for saving her life. When they got to the mini-boss room's door, Ajaha said she would fight and protect him. Kiska smiled and said it was also because of her that he was still alive. Ajaha opened the door, and the moment they got a peek inside, Kiska gasped in shock to see a huge monster made out of strong stones. This golem was classified as an S-rank mini-boss. Kiska was speechless. He could tell that this monster would be around 10 meters tall, and when the golem roared loudly, Ajaha ordered him to move behind her. He moved behind and worriedly looked at them, but Ajaha told him not to worry because she would protect him. She dashed forward with a smile and slashed his sword against the monster. The golem got mad, so it tried to punch her, but she managed to jump off right in time to dodge it. Kiska was in awe of her skills and battle experience. She was incredibly strong and kept holding her ground against that giant golem without a problem. He thought if this would continue, she would easily defeat the golem. However, that rock piece looked like a paid actor. Ajaha stepped on it and lost her balance. She screamed as she saw the golem's fist coming, so she had no choice but to use her weapon to block the attack. The impact radiated through her body and sent her crashing to the wall. Kiska screamed her name wordly because she was still recovering from that blow. The golem had already sent a follow-up attack. Kiska immediately used his provoking skills and told the golem to look at him. The monster flinched and glared at him. Ajaha gasped and screamed at him to stop, but the golem was already running towards him for a punch. Kiska breathed deeply as he watched the fist get closer. The fist smashed through the wall and shattered it to pieces. His limbs were seen hanging out, making Ajaha almost perish in guilt. She called his name with a shaking voice. Her body started trembling, and she thought she was supposed to protect the man who freed her. A few seconds later, Kiska was heard chuckling and saying dodging was the one he was good at after all the time in the bugbear fight. Her heart jumped with happiness as she saw his smiling face. He told her to strike an attack while the golem's fist was stuck. Ajaha nodded and held her sword tightly. She took a huge leap and got herself to the right height for her final blow. Don't you try to pause this and zoom in for the cake, okay? Lucky golem. He saw a beautiful sight before he was sliced to death with Ajaha's sacred word technique called Dragon Slayer. In one swing, the golem's body was sliced in half. Its body fell to the ground first, so she was able to land easily. Kiska smiled at her when she turned around after her success. She ran towards him, called his name, and jumped for a hug. She giggled and said they defeated the golem together. Kiska nodded while trying his best not to touch her. The S-rank golem was defeated, making him think that things would get better, or at least, that was what he thought at this time. He might get drained from exhaustion. In fighting, of course. After defeating the golem, Ajaha found a secret passage. She scanned the hole for an exit. She called Kiska and told him she found a secret room inside. Kiska was surprised, so he followed her inside while keeping himself from looking in the front because he might see a different, smaller passageway. When they got out, they were mesmerized by the room. The room was pretty warm and cozy. It has a bed, couch, and even a small kitchen. Kiska asked what this place was, and she said a vampire must have created it. And that vampire was named Judith. She was a monster who made this dungeon her stronghold. He asked if it was alright for them to come in there, but Ajaha looked around as she thought about it and said it would be fine. She walked to the bed and jumped on it to rest her body. She giggled and said they should rest for now because she was tired from running and walking. Kiska had a bad feeling about it but thought he would have to believe her if she were okay with it. He was caught off guard when Ajaha told him to sit beside her. He was flustered as he looked at her. She opened her mouth and said she only wanted to talk with him some more. He was relieved that they would only be talking, so he sat down beside her while maintaining the right amount of distance. There were a few seconds of silence between them, but Kiska broke it when he asked her if she found him weird. She got confused, so she asked what he meant. Kiska smiled bitterly and said it was about his silver hair. She smiled as she looked at him, saying she thought his silver hair looked nice. Kiska was surprised and confirmed what he heard, so she said while giggling that having that silver hair on him looked pretty and magical. Kiska smiled as he looked on the floor. He was happy because this made his village hate him, and until now, no one has ever looked at his hair with a smile. He thought Ajaha had become the second to compliment him, including Namia. She shrugged her shoulder and said that was what she thought, and maybe it was because she came from a different world. Kiska looked at her in surprise after hearing she was not originally from their world. Ajaha looked at him and asked if he didn't believe her, but Kiska was just surprised. Just by witnessing her strength and capabilities, he smiled and replied to her, saying he believed her. Ajaha smiled with her cheeks turning red. She rested her head on his shoulder and chuckled a little. She sighed and said that was what she thought he would say. Kiska felt at ease with her, and he found it strange, but his thoughts were interrupted when his stomach growled like a crazy wild lion. He chuckled awkwardly, so she asked if he was hungry. He said he hadn't eaten anything since he entered this dungeon, so she winked at him and said she would cook a lump of delicious mule meat for him. He went to the couch while he watched Ajaha prepare the ingredients. She was focused on her preparations, and she finished cooking and poured the soup into the bowl. She told him it was ready and served the food on the table. She told him to try it first, so he nodded and took a spoonful. He thanked her for the meal before eating it. He suddenly froze and bit his lips in shock. He smiled and said it was amazing. He continued munching on the fried mule, making Ajaha so happy that he enjoyed her food. Kiska believed that food in the dungeon was fundamentally scarce, but he was surprised that Ajaha's herbs and seasoning inside her item box would make this food delicious. Upon realizing this was his first food after being exiled to this hellish dungeon, his chin trembled as he tried to hold back his tears. Ajaha noticed it and asked if she had added too much spice to the food. Kiska got a little surprised and just said yes to avoid any drama. She apologized, and after eating, Ajaha cleaned up the table. A few minutes passed. Kiska said he was pretty tired now, but he suddenly realized there was only one bed inside the room, so he told her he would sleep on the couch so she could sleep on the bed. Ajaha said that wouldn't be necessary. She looked at him and said they could both sleep on the bed together. Kiska's eyes widened in shock. He stuttered as he said they shouldn't do that. When the lights were out, only a single candle was left on. Kiska and Ajaha slept on their spots, but Kiska's mind was still awake. He thought he could escape this dungeon if he had her by his side, but somehow felt pathetic for relying on her for everything. As he was thinking, he heard some creaking sound. He almost gasped in shock to see Ajaha crawling up to him. Her face was red as she smiled at him in her sleeping wear. He was stunned and about to ask what she was doing on top of him, but she immediately dived for a kiss. He was shocked and quickly got up, but Ajaha grabbed his trembling wrist and teasingly told him to try to touch them. He was trying to pull his hand away, but his body was shut down in shock. She easily placed his hand on her melons and asked if he could feel her heart racing. She smiled and told Kiska she loved him, making him flustered and dumbfounded. She repeatedly said she loved him like a broken plate, so he tried to cut her off and asked what she meant. Ajaha went silent for a second as he leaned back and asked what he was talking about. Kiska almost dropped his jaw when she said it was because he saved her. She just smiled at him despite seeing his shocked face. She explained that she had been alone and stuck there for hundreds of years, so she believed her Prince Charming would someday save her. That was why she gave everyone who came to the dungeon that skill. She wanted those people to save her, but it was no use. She said she gave it to countless people, and everyone lost heart along the way, so only Kiska managed to make it to her. She said Kiska was the prince she had been waiting for ages. His heart started pounding loudly from nervousness when she grabbed the ends of her dress and pulled it up, about to take it off. Kiska immediately looked away and told her to stop loudly. Ajaha was surprised to realize Kiska was not happy with what she was doing. He told her he didn't want to do this with her. Ajaha asked why with her begging puppy face on, and he bluntly said he already had someone he loved. She looked away in embarrassment, but after a few seconds of pondering, she pushed him and said that wouldn't be a problem for her at all. He saw her as a creepy girl trying to get him, as she said being second would be fine for her. She grabbed his face and started kissing him. Kiska's body was trembling in fear, and that feeling brought the memories that also made him feel this fear all at once. While Ajaha was too busy pushing her limits, Kiska lifted his trembling hands and pushed her face off. He screamed and told her to stop, but Ajaha fell on the floor from that push. The two froze in shock. When she caressed her face, Kiska somehow felt guilt in his heart. He apologized and asked if she was all right. At that moment, Kiska found her ugly for pushing herself on him like Darga and his men who tried to harass Namia. Ajaha stood up and apologized to him. She returned to her bed, said she had gotten a little carried away, and tucked herself into sleep. Kiska was left speechless as he looked at her back. He sighed and returned to bed, thinking he had shoved her away without thinking. He only wanted to refuse her and thought he should have been gentler because he knew he needed her to escape this dungeon. After a few minutes of thinking, he dozed off to sleep, and when he woke up, he sat up. He was still adjusting her eyes to the light but was shocked to see Ajaha before his eyes. The sight sent a shiver down his spine. Maybe because Kiska had left her hanging there. Hehe, just kidding. Well, this went 0 to 100 instantly. It escalated quickly. Ajaha was floating. It wasn't because of magic. It was because of the rope around her neck. Kiska couldn't help but throw up at the side. Because he rejected her, she killed herself. He wondered if he's the evil one. He started running away while convincing himself that he's not a bad guy. After getting out of the hole, mules attacked him. He came this far because of Ajaha. Without her, he was easily surrounded by monsters and killed without a chance of survival. But then, he wondered if he should have accepted her love, then she won't kill herself. These thoughts were quickly washed out when he remembered Namia. She is his girlfriend and no one else. But Ajaha is still alive, and if he just rewinds, he will accept her love. This way, she can help him again. After touching the barrier, Ajaha came back to life. Kiska introduced himself, but she said that this was the first time she heard of his name. However, she added that she's wondering why he smelled so bad. Kiska immediately got this bizarre feeling. This girl is somehow different than before. She looks exactly like Ajaha but a little different. So, to confirm, he asked if she was Ajaha. She already knew that this wasn't the first time meeting him. And she's also guessing that he went against her last time, that's why Kiska had a bad scent for her. Her grip on his neck tightened even more as she said that he must not make the mistake of thinking that he can just die and everything will go back. Even when he dies, his actions will reach the soul. That's when Kiska figured out that this isn't Ajaha. The woman said that her true identity is like him and there's no way she'd talk to someone like Kiska. She stressed out that Ajaha refuses to talk to him. And this will be the last warning. He must not get involved with Ajaha again. and as soon as she said that, she snapped his neck. Kiska doesn't understand what was happening at all. It's like she has two personalities. But now, one thing is certain. He doesn't have anything to do with her anymore. If she sees him again, he will get himself killed, so he decided not to break the seal anymore. Though, it is difficult for him to wander inside the dungeon without help. But when he thinks about it, it seems like he will just need to find another way. He came back to these portals. Last time, he used the one in the middle. Now, he's thinking of using the left one. The route is the same as the one with Ajaha. It seems like there's only one path here too. At the end of these halls was a girl. In this hellish dungeon, this girl is just relaxing and drinking tea. The girl asked him if he needed anything. He said that he's actually looking for a way to get out of the dungeon. The girl understood him but voices out that she finds it rude. She introduced herself as the great true ancestors of the vampires, and she doesn't think that's the right attitude of someone who knows who she was. She cut herself open and the blood that came out struck him straight on the chest. Once again he died, but this time with the realization that this dungeon is full of bad people. That vampire must be the one Ajaha told him about, Judith, dressed like an innocent girl in those pretty clothes. He doesn't think he can fight someone like that who attacked him for no reason. But that leaves him with one option. The third route, the teleportation circle on the right. While walking down the familiar hole, he was hoping that this one does not have ferocious people like the two girls. Upon reaching the end, he was surprised to see this sword. It looked very suspicious to him. He has come this far without a weapon, but if this sword is a powerful weapon, then it could help him get out of this dungeon. So he went and gave it a try. But right when he grabbed the handle, a sharp pain shot through his entire body. He couldn't let go of the sword and the pain lasted for several minutes. After that, he fainted. He woke up and what surprised him was the sword is one with his right arm. He tried pulling his arm up and it was so heavy. He finally managed to make some progress, but now, he can't even move his arm with this, especially that a rank werewolf is in front of him. Seeing this, he already accepted his defeat, or so he thought, because the sword started to move on its own, stabbing the werewolf on its chest and cutting it into pieces. Kiska thought that this was good. He'll do whatever it takes to get out, even if he has to do this with this creepy, sinister sword. This black sword is strong. With this, he believes that he would be able to defeat the enemy. He walked through the tunnels and arrived at yet another mini-boss room. This griffin greeted him strongly with its attack. The black sword lifted him up easily to avoid it. With a mind of its own, the black sword started fighting the griffin. All that Kiska can do right now is try and not get in the way of the sword. Perhaps that way he can win, and so did he. As he had thought, just like the golem, there's a hidden door. He walked through it, but as he did, things started to weigh him down. The sword has gotten bigger and now it reaches his shoulder. His eyes widened when he saw Judith a few steps away from him. Seeing the sword in him, she realized that he was still in control. Judith said that what she wants is obviously to dispose of him, to destroy that parasitic sword on the right half of his body. She explained that this sword is a very dangerous thing and it grows by feeding off people and even some monsters. She thought it would be fine since this dungeon is rarely visited by humans. But then, these things happen. Like she was a Barbie, Judith took off her arm and made it a weapon. She charged towards Kiska and she was quite surprised that he was fighting back. With this parasitic sword, Kiska ought not to lose. Judith laughed at him like she was looking at a pathetic loser. She said that it's not easy to deal with that sword when it's grown to this degree. She then raised her hand and used her shallow rainstorm skill. She didn't want to use this technique because she's lost the use of her left arm for a while, but seeing him suffer like this was such a scene for her. And again, Kiska died. But this time, he wanted to sort things out first so he can know what to do next. When he uses the first teleportation circle, he will encounter the sealed Ajaha. When he breaks the seal, he'll be killed by someone in the form of Ajaha. When he uses the second teleportation circle, Judith will kill him without warning. The third teleportation circle gives him the parasitic sword puppet, which allows him to proceed deeper into the dungeon. However, he will be then killed by Judith. Still, he thought that if he wanted to live as long as possible, he would have to take a third route. He should fight off Judith, all with the help of the parasitic sword puppet, and then he'll get through the dungeon. He then remembered what Judith said, that the parasitic sword feeds on humans. That means, by the time he meets her, he can grow the parasitic sword to its full potential, and he might be able to beat Judith. Once that is decided, it's a race against time before Judith shows up. Now, he's about 5 hours earlier than last time. Last time he went through this teleportation circle, she was waiting for him. However, this time, she wasn't there. But instead, the place has become a werewolf nest. But still, it was a good thing because he will be able to feed these werewolves off. Judith said that these swords seem to have grown considerably, so she thinks this is going to be a bit of a challenge to beat. Though, it appears that he's already losing consciousness. But that doesn't matter, she'll kill him. Though, she might give him a chance to fight back. Even after that, he tried again and again without giving up. There were times he thought he was close, but then the parasitic sword would completely take over his consciousness. Even if he left the dungeon in such a state, there would be no point. All the routes are a complete disaster. He then remembered that there's one more thing he wanted to try. Although quite risky, there's no need to fear now. He remembered how Judith talked to him before killing him. This time, he will be respectful. He asked Judith to make him her disciple. Judith became interested and asked what she could possibly gain from that. He told her that he is willing to be her little foot soldier. He shall follow all of her commands. To his surprise, Judith found it boring and killed him at that moment. To get out, he needed to become stronger than he is now. That's why he has decided to try and become her apprentice. Judith is one of a ruthless vampire, but but she's not one of those monsters you can't get through. If he can offer Judith what she wants, he will have a chance to get on her side. This time, he came for the empathetic card. He thought, after being in this dungeon for a long time, she's longing for someone to talk to. However, Judith isn't lonely at all. She was about to kill him when Kiska said that he's been working in the fields for a long time. Thus, he is very confident in his abilities. He told her that he's good at everything, especially when it comes to building a new hideaway. But Judith said that she's certain she can do it better than him. Kiska realized that he had nothing to offer to her. Nothing at all, so he went transparent. He told her his story and said that he wanted to take revenge on those villagers. He wanted to torture and kill all of them in the most brutal manner. He wanted her help for this massacre and vowed that he'll give her all of his dedication. This time, Judith was actually interested, but he can't be happy yet. She'll give him a test. If he passed this, she will allow him to become her apprentice. She asked if he used a teleportation circle to get here. He said yes, and Judith explained that this dungeon is quite unique. Once you step on those circles, you can't go back. However, if he uses a certain secret, he will be able to access the other routes. At the end of the passage was the parasitic sword. Judith said that he must overcome the sword's parasitic nature and learn how to control it. If he can do that, he will be able to pass the test. Judith said that she's pretty sure he will fail, but Kiska doesn't have a choice because if he refuses, she'll kill him instead. Judith told him to grab the sword by its blade and not the hilt before swiftly pulling it out. It hurts big time, but he thought it's a lot better than when he gripped the hilt. After completely pulling it out, Judith asked him to swallow it. After swallowing it whole, he met the sword itself. This place is his deep world. He guessed that he meant that they were in his mind. He told the sword that he needed him to lend his power. The sword agreed, and he was surprised that it was that easy. He was afraid that it would say no. The sword said that there's something about his soul that smells familiar, so he thought he would come with him. He had succeeded in controlling the sword, and he managed to become Judith's apprentice. From that day on, her strange life with her began. After officially becoming her disciple, he spent the night in a shelter that he previously stayed with Ajaha. Because the bed in this refuge is a single bed, they will have to sleep in different rooms. But he heard that there are other hiding places in this dungeon. Upon entering her room, he found Judith still sleeping soundly, even now that he became her disciple. But look at her, he still doesn't know where to keep an eye on it. From this day on, Judith will train him. She asked if Kisek's mentally prepared. He said that no matter how difficult the training is, he can take it all. Judith asked him to wait for a while as she changed her clothes. She asked what skills he had. He only said the provocative one. He thinks it's better to hide the save and reset skill. As they walked down these halls, Kiska found this quite new. Judith said that she has lived here almost 1,000 years, so every corner of this place is already etched on her head. She pushed a block and this greeted them. She said that the purpose of today is to get more skills for him. And of course, the location of the treasure chest, and they are all in the palm of her hand. Kiska opened the chest. He acquired the crystal of wisdom, and as he looks at it, he thought that it is similar to the list of skills he saw before. But some are different. He thinks there will be no overwhelming and see-through. He asked Judith what he should choose. She replied that if she was him, she would only choose swordsmanship, explaining that the parasitic sword puppet has become part of his flesh and blood and resides inside his body now. When that puppet shows its original form, to control it in his own way, she thinks this skill will be useful. Judith said that from now on, they will search for the skill and will enter the deepest room of this dungeon. Now, they have gone all the way through this mystery with almost no bad guys. Suddenly, there was a sign. This treasure chest skill awaits them. It is also known as the luck test chest. The wise crystal in this chest is a random item in the skills a moment ago. He opened it and got this elemental magic. Even Judith was disappointed with his unluckiness. She explained that there are some strange skills, but if he doesn't use the magic skill, he can throw it. He felt genuinely sad about it. But Judith said that heaven willed it. As long as he still intend to get the magic skill, he must not be discouraged like that. But for now, they should go back to the hiding place. However, he was interested in this door. Judith said that this room has the boss to escape from this dungeon. Finally, he found a way to escape from this place. He asked Judith if she would beat the boss in that room. She said that the boss was rank SSS and it hasn't been out for 50 years. So, she told Kiska that if he wanted to go outside, he must be at least as strong as her, and if possible, he must be stronger than her. Only a team of 2 people can defeat the boss. She then added that after returning, special training will be required. Kiska realized that she used to kill him extremely savagely like that with the merged blood that has turned into a short sword. He knew that there's nothing that she can't do. Eventually, Judith said that he's gonna be like her, able to import and export the parasitic sword which is inside his body. He tried to focus really hard until he managed to get the sword out of his body. Temporarily with this, Judith said that he can at least get a fight. Now, for his first task, he needs to land a hit on Judith at least once. His face completely brought how worried and hesitant he was. Judith said that he is under special training, so she's not going to take her disciple's life. But what he meant was if he could slash her freely. Judith said that she has the ability to heal wounds. But then, she turned the tables and asked why he was thinking of slashing her. It was her own mouth that said that, but Kiska had no choice but to dodge her attack. Right now, Judith looks like she got her trail trampled. Thanks to his skill of swordsmanship, he was able to take the risk. But she was like a gladiator who is pumped with chicken blood. She swings her sword so quickly with one hand. Even if he could catch the blow, he had to blow it away. And even though it's training, just keep getting hit like this, he'll surely die. He tried to strike her, but the head of the sword did not reach. Last time, she used a long sword, so he was careless, unable to create the distance. But now she's using a short sword. Judith jumped and took a strike, but he quickly used his own sword to defend. She attacks from above so she won't get hit, and the sword kicks back. He aimed for her head only to slice her arm. It was a trick. Judith herself was surprised. Kiska panicked and worried if she was alright. Judith said that these slight scratches mean nothing to her. He then remembered that she can even pull her arm out. He completed the task, of course thanks to his parasitic sword and swordsmanship skills. Judith noticed that the way he fights is not the same as the struggle of ordinary people. She asked if he had good combat experience already. He said that his experience is almost zero. Judith was surprised and said that there's a genius in him. Today, they're going to fight actual monsters. It's a practical training session. He was busy fighting these headless mules when Judith's sword came flying towards him. Kinda brutal, but that's how she coached him. She told him that he needs to tighten his arms. When fighting against multiple opponents, he must fight compactly. He did as she was told and blocked all of the mules' attack. Judith told him that these headless mules are out of magic. With this sword he has, they're nothing more than mere meat targets. So, he needs to be bold and blunt. First, he jumps forward and aims for the mule on the left. Next, the one in the back. Then, the one on the right. He already got 3 of them down. Now that the others are dead, they are trying to escape. After slicing the one in the middle, he attacked the remaining, and he finally finished them all. Judith was happy and proud of him. He told her that if he didn't have her help along the way, he wouldn't be able to win. Judith replied that if he died in a place like this, it would take decades before she can go outside again. And she doesn't even know how many decades it would even take her. She promised to make him stronger, so he needs to be diligent. After subjugation of these mules, he earned some skill points. Judith suggested that he should try raising his level right now. Finally, he has filled all 5 skill slots. Currently, he has 15 SP. He believes that he's only as strong as he is now because of his swordsmanship and parasitic sword skill. If he had to choose, it would be either of those two. He needs 30 more SP for his swordsmanship and then 70 more for the parasitic sword. He told Judith that he would like to raise the level of his swordsmanship. She said that it's definitely the safest choice. Then, they called it a day and went back to the hideout. Judith was getting impatient a bit as he asked Kiska if he's done already. His job since becoming her apprentice has not been to brew tea but to provide her with monster blood. Apparently, she has an obsession with drinking blood from teacups. He doesn't think he would ever want to drink monster blood, but she drinks it as if it's a delicacy. While drinking, she asked if the dinner's ready. He prepared this headless mule steak. Judith was sad that it was the same as yesterday. Apparently it can't be helped, they don't have many seasonings. There's not much else he can make. But he defeated a few wriggling trees, so now they have a salad. Judith, however, isn't a fan of salad. He said that she needs to eat vegetables or else she will become malnourished. Silence was too loud when Judith replied that she's a vampire, she doesn't need nutrients. Kiska got up from his seat and brought these dryad fruits on the table. He had found them on the backside of the dryad when he was picking out the leaves, so he decided to collect them. Originally, he was going to let it sit for a few days to kill it and make it taste better. He was going to serve it for later, but today feels a bit special. But really, he believes that if he had more seasoning, he could make so much more than just this. If he could get out of the dungeon, he's sure that he could have more ingredients. He then brought up the topic of Judith freely going in and out of the dungeon. She said that she used to do that often. The dungeons are more comfortable for them vampires since they don't get as much sunlight, and that's the main reason why she just stays here. Kiska assumed that because the strong boss came along, she was stuck in here. Judith replied that's partly true, but it's just one of the reasons. Back then, there was a separate room from the boss room which used to have a teleportation circle that allowed her to go in and out of this dungeon. Kiska said that he didn't know such a thing existed. Judith explained that she was the only one who knew about its existence. But one day, someone went and destroyed it. He asked if she had any idea who the person was. Sadly, she doesn't. But she believes that whoever it was that sealed Ajaha in this dungeon is the culprit. She thinks they destroyed the teleportation circle to make sure that Ajaha didn't escape from the dungeon. The moment he heard the name Ajaha, his heart shuddered. Judith said that Ajaha is a great person. She was the one who subjugated the Demon King. It was strange for him because it's different from the stories he knows. It's a famous story that more than 100 years ago, the Demon Lord was vanquished by a brave warrior. The warrior was named Elysium and everyone knew him as the hero. But he wondered what she meant by saying that Ajaha was the one who did it. He then asked why Ajaha was sealed in this dungeon. She doesn't know the details, but he only has one thing of advice for him. No matter what he does, he must never break the seal. She is the one who defeated the Demon King, but she also has the power to destroy the world. She can't imagine what would happen if her seal broke. However, we all knew that he already did. He just hoped that he wouldn't cause any problems. He looked at the table and all the dryad fruits were already gone. It might have gone on her stomach. This feels like a master-slave relationship to him. After that, his training sessions with Judith continued for several months. Currently, his skill has reached level 3. Judith said that at this rate, the day they escape from this dungeon together might be really close. He promised that he'll get stronger, strong enough to take her outside. She then laughed at his silliness before heading back to the hideout first because Kiska has to skin this monster first. Skinning monster is the job for the disciple. Coming back home, this moment made him rethink his life decisions. She found Judith completely naked. He quickly apologized and ran away, which made her laugh uncontrollably, making fun of his reaction. After eating their dinner, he washed all the cutlery and now all of his work is complete. He told Judith that he's going to bed now, but he stopped in his tracks when she asked if he would like to sleep with her for today. He asked her if there are any reasons behind her request. She replied that she didn't feel like sleeping alone today. Upon hearing it, he decided that if that's all, he would just go and sleep in his own room like usual. Judith said that he's being meaner than usual today. Kiska found her reaction cute. If he doesn't do what she says, he will feel guilty for the rest of his life. If they're just going to sleep together, he thinks there's nothing wrong with that. Judith broke the silence and said that the first time she met him, it seemed like such a long time ago for her. Kiska agreed. When he first met her, he just thought of Judith as a very scary person, and now that he thinks of her sleeping next to him, it was a strange feeling. He glanced at her and confirmed if she was planning to kill him at first, which made Judith surprised. She now thinks that Kiska can see through her, but he only knew because she already killed him many times. Judith apologized and said that the only people she has ever met have tried to kill her as soon as they saw her. That's why she's always been on guard. He said that he doesn't hate her at all. He became what he is today because of her, so he's grateful and has no reason at all to resent her. Judith said that she was glad and relieved that he doesn't hate her. Kiska became anxious because she kept getting closer and closer. She asked what he thought of her when he saw her naked today. Kiska nervously said that she looked really beautiful. However, she wasn't satisfied, so she kept asking. He said that she looked pretty, cute, and erotic. She said that it was kind of perverted. At this point, he was close to crying. He begged her not to tease him. Judith laughed and apologized, but then she asked what he'll do if she offers her body naked again. In a situation like this, no matter what, he can't help but think about Ajaha and Namia. After what happened to Namia, he just had to resist. But if he rejects her, something like Ajaha might happen again. He got up and said that he doesn't think that his life right now is that bad. But it's scary because he keeps living this comfortable life. He was scared that the whole vengeful spirit inside him would disappear. When those bears kept killing him, he had gone and cursed his fate. But now, he's strong enough to defeat the monsters, and he even has a cute girl on his side. But if he continues living his life like this, he told Judith that he in fact loves her, but he's not ready yet. Sadness and disappointment was visible in her eyes. But then, she leaned forward and kissed him before saying that they could continue this once he had his revenge. A sigh of relief left him. However, things started crazier. Before his eyes, Judith's head flew. It was Ajaha. Horror covered his face as he looked at Ajaha, who was supposed to be sealed. He realizes it was the same when she gave him the save and reset skill. Judith, well basically her head, asked him to get out of here. Ajaha found her noisy, so she walked towards her and smashed her head into pieces. Ajaha said that she loves him. That's why, if she catches him with another woman, she won't forgive him. Blood spurted out from the sword that Ajaha threw at him. He has come all this way to just die again. After waking up, the first thing he did was check his stats. To his horror, all 5 slots that were filled with skills are now empty. All those months that he spent with Judith have all become meaningless. He fell on his knees and broke down into tears. He remembered all the times he spent with Judith, and it made him cry a river. He decided to go back to her. He hoped that Judith would remember him. But as expected, she has forgotten about him, but he doesn't want to give up just yet. He mentioned his name, hoping that it would trigger her memory, but Judith said that she doesn't have any memory of having an acquaintance like him. At this point, he was close to losing his sanity. For the second time, he asked Judith to make him her disciple. He wanted to start over from scratch again. He will become her disciple, then they will escape this dungeon together. As much as he knows, Judith might kill him again. But even so, he'll come back here as many times as it takes. However, this is not the case. Ajaha once again killed Judith. She reminded him that she won't forgive him if she hooks up with another woman. So, she stuck her sword on his throat. He realized that he can't get close to Judith anymore. He tried to recall all the countless things Judith taught him. The structure of the dungeon and its hidden passage, the locations of treasure chests, battle techniques with swords, and how to control the parasite sword. He may no longer have a relationship with her, but her teachings are still with him. Now, he has decided that he can do this on his own. He will escape from this dungeon by himself with his gratitude for Judith etched on his soul. He promised that with the wisdom and experience she has given him, he will utilize them to the fullest in order to break out of this dungeon. Grabbing the puppet sword by its blade, in one go, he swallowed it whole. However, to his surprise, the sword seemed to be familiar with him. If it's like before, the sword should have readily agreed. However, it said that it has goals of his own and wondered if obeying him would help him achieve those goals. Kiska asked what kind of goal it had on its mind. The sword responded that he wanted to become a human. Since he feeds off humans like a parasite, it would be better if he were to take over the body completely. Kiska asked if controlling his body already made human. The sword said that he has controlled many humans, but he has never tried to become one. However, surprisingly, the sword feels like obeying him might bring him closer to becoming human. He has successfully controlled the puppet sword. With this, he can fight again. The next in his task list was acquiring the swordsmanship skill. After this is the random skill from the Crystal of Wisdom, but the treasure chest is right in front of the boss's lair, meaning that it will take time to get there, not to mention the danger. Last time, he obtained the attribute granting skill. In the end, he never had the opportunity to use it. Right now, it's pointless for him to head there right now. More importantly, with his current strength, he'll hunt the monsters he can and level up his swordsmanship. By hunting the headless mules for about half a day, he was able to raise his swordsmanship skill to level 2. However, he has cleared out all of the locations where he knows that headless mukes spawn. It seems like it will take a while for them to respawn. He wondered if he should go for the werewolf nest next. Judith has come there before. However, right now, he definitely cannot meet Judith. First, they aren't close in this life, so if they were to meet, there is a chance that he would be killed on sight. Even then, if by some chance they were to get close, life a vengeful spirit, Ajaha would come for them both. He was getting worked up thinking what to do next when the puppet sword suddenly spoke, which made him jolt. He was surprised that it can talk. Even the puppet sword himself was surprised though. The sword developing the ability to speak should not be this fast. Maybe because they were very compatible with each other. Could it be that the accumulation of their user and tool relationship has resulted in the puppet sword gaining the ability to speak? The puppet sword asked what was troubling him. Kiska asked if he had good ways to acquire a lot of skill points. The puppet sword led him here. Around here should be a switch that will take them to the second stage. Pushing one of the blocks, they found this secret passage. According to the puppet sword, his previous master stumbled upon it by accident. That being said, this hidden passage might be a thing that even Judith doesn't know about. Then, the puppet sword said that he knows what kind of monsters lie up ahead, but with his current strength, he might end up getting killed. Kiska thanked him for the advice, but something like getting killed is nothing new to him. The passageway closed and portals spawned these golden living armor. It seems like there are about 20 of them. Kiska was not certain if he could win, but he did have a plan. Because he has faced enough deadly situations, he no longer fears death. So, there's nothing for him to do except to push through. He heard that these golden living armors are stronger than werewolves, but he was a bit confident because he had the puppet swords. Though the werewolves were all unarmed, these guys have weapons, so it was a bit troublesome. He began eliminating them one by one using taunt skill. This fighting style he was using is effective in group battles, but since you don't get skill points for monsters that die in friendly fire, it's not ideal for farming skill points. But in terms of reducing the number of enemies, it's very effective. However, he ended up getting cornered with a sword struck on his chest, killed by the werewolves and now killed by the golden living armor. He has died hundreds of times over and over again. Even so, no matter how many times he dies, he will start over. When he was living with Judith, those were his peaceful days. His mouth dropped open when he realized something after dying and seeing the puppet sword like this. Its appearance started changing. It looked more human each time they met. Could it be that the puppet sword is able to escape, save, and reset, and avoid the reset? He has been through a lot. For these guys, he might be their first opponent, but he has been killed by them many times. So, no matter how formidable they are, he will always win in the end. He used his first skill, taunt, and provoke these enemies. He has a plan. Using this skill, he'll make them attack each other. Then, he'll spin his body around and with his blade, from above, he'll swing it down. The puppet sword was completely amazed with him. And while he's talking with this puppet sword, he knew that a golden living armor that circled behind will aim for his back, so he'll lower his center of gravity while turning around to cut its torso in half. All of this was going all according to his plans so far. As expected, the SP from the monsters here is 10 times more than the other places. It's on a whole different level. Just by defeating 4 of them, he got 416 SP. Using these he leveled up and acquired a derivative skill called Pulsing Great Sword. The ability of this technique was the puppet-style sword technique, Swift Dragon Thrust. The autonomous function, just like it was paralyzing it before. The puppet sword will pull him along and fight for him. Now, he's starting to see the full victory ahead. Last time, he died around here due to a stupid mistake. And now, only a few more golden living armors are left, so very determined to push through this. However, much to his surprise, it turns out there is a boss in this room. It was an SS-class monster, a Knight Rider. Kiska asked the puppet sword if it's possible if they can defeat this. The puppet sword replied that it depends on him. However, his last master got taken out by this guy. He said confidently that he can handle puppet arts better than his last master. Their teamwork isn't just for show. He have fought countless battles using the puppet arts, so he refused to lose to just any ordinary enemy. But first, these henchmen are still on the way, so he wanted to take them out first. Using the wind-cutting scythe, he completely crushed them. The puppet sword said that he pulled off that technique so smoothly even though it's his first time using it. Truth be told, this is his second time. Now, the only one to take care of is this boss. The Knight Rider strikes him with its spear, but he quickly defends himself before sliding backwards. He had to admit, it has a huge range. He asked the puppet sword if he could get him into his range. They tried taking a strike, however, the Knight Rider was too good with his spear. He couldn't deal any damage to him, and at this rate, he was going to lose. The Knight Rider attacked him from any angle possible, and he barely managed to dodge them all. At this point, it can't be helped. They should use that. The puppet sword warned him that he might die. If he can't deal damage because of the spear, then he'll crush it along with him. him. Using this great wheel slash, he cut the Knight Rider into half. Currently, he has saved up 1320 SP. He only needs 700 points to level up the puppet sword to level 3. And now that he has defeated the boss, he can now level up. Ruthless Predator has been acquired. The puppet sword became this huge blob and Kiska was more than surprised. This is exactly the form the puppet sword have been looking for. Now that it's no longer in the form of a sword, Kiska asked what he could do in that form. The puppet sword told him that he could eat. Turns out, Kiska will be its first meal. Once again, he was fooled. So, in that case, he should probably stop using the puppet sword for his plans. He wondered if he should try to rely on his swordsmanship skills and steal the golden living armor's sword. But he disregarded that shortly because he knows it's not gonna work. To break through that room, he'll need the puppet sword autonomous functions. An idea popped into his mind. In that case, he has his own plans too. He started from the beginning until here. He chose not to raise his level. The puppet sword encouraged him, saying that he'll be even more powerful. Kiska taunted him and said that he's probably thinking of eating him. If Kiska were to part ways with this puppet sword, he would have to pick up a sword lying around and rely on his swordsmanship skills. However, much to his surprise, the puppet sword was already aiming for his neck. The puppet sword made him choose if he would like to be beheaded like this or be eaten later by the ruthless predator. Both options are terrible to him, so he asked the puppet sword if he would like to negotiate. Since he wants to become human, it wouldn't be interesting to behead him here right now. But does it have to be him who has to be eaten? The puppet sword said that it doesn't necessarily have to be him, but it's not just anyone either. Either a strong human will bring him closer to being human himself. The puppet sword if he could get such a human right away. If he thinks about it logically, the one to be sacrificed would be Ajaha. If he were to be honest, he doesn't have any good memories with her. He has been killed by her countless times and gone through hell. If it's Ajaha, the moment the barrier breaks, he could cut her down within those few seconds before regaining consciousness. Ajaha is a hero who saved this world. Though she put him through a lot of suffering, she might be someone this world needs, which means Judith is left to choose. However, there's no way he could sacrifice her. Even though their relationship has ended, he still feels grateful to her. He still loves her. It's just that she was a terrifying vampire who, at times, even attacks ordinary people. If that's the case, he has to choose if it's the hero who saved the world or the vampire feared by the people. In the end, he chose Ajaha. Upon seeing, the puppet sword said that there's a powerful barrier, and he can't eat like this. Kiska assured him that he can easily break it. Ever since he got the save and reset skill, it feels like the value of life has become worthless for him. He no longer feels anything about his own death. So then, what could be felt about the death of others? However, this time he began to hesitate. There's still a chance that Ajaha could kill him again in the future, so killing her here is something that needs to be done. And yet, the worst is that he can't kill someone who said that they love him. So, he asked the puppet sword to just cut his head off now. To his surprise, the puppet sword has decided not to kill him nor Ajaha. He said that he just thought that this kind of thinking seems human-like. Kiska thanked him and said that he'll find a way for him to become human. Afterwards, they went back here to rest. This place holds both the sad memory of Ajaha taking her own life, and the happy memories of the time he stayed here while he was with Judith. But since Judith never used this place, it's the most suitable spot for them to rest. While taking a rest, Kiska asked him if there's no other way for him to become human other than eating people. He said that it doesn't seem like it. But deep down, he kinda knew from the start that he wouldn't be able to become human unless he ate people. But to eat people, he has to become a predator. For that, someone needs to raise him to level 3. And most of his previous masters ended up messing and dying along the way. So, relying on others became too risky. That's why he started parasitizing them so he could take control. But even then, all it did was make his body bigger, and he never figured out how to become a predator. Even he was surprised that a human could dominate him. There wasn't a single person who could handle him better than Kiska. Kiska realized that this is maybe part of the reason why he kept him alive. The puppet sword then asked why he came to the Katarov dungeon. So, Kiska explained it to him. The puppet sword proposed to eat everyone in the village. He felt alive after hearing this. His revenge and the puppet sword dream. They perfectly align. So, starting tomorrow, they'll just keep going until they escape the dungeon. Now that he has come this far, all that's left is to aim for the dungeon's exit door. However, Judith was on his way. Judith said she will kill anyone who carries the parasite sword. Even the puppet sword can see how much danger is coming from her. They are so close to escaping the dungeon, but now he has to fight her. But instead, this was his plan. First, he had to shut the puppet sword's mouth and bow down with respect, recognizing her as the great ancient vampire. He added that they're planning to escape this dungeon and asked if she would kindly let them pass. Judith, unfortunately, said that it's not possible at all because she deemed that this parasite sword he was carrying is dangerous, and if she does not eliminate it, it will cause much trouble later. So, in return, he said that he successfully consumed the parasite sword and can fully control it. Judith was surprised and said that she never imagined that someone would know how to control it. Little did she know, she was the one who taught him that. She agreed to let them pass, but only for a step because she quickly attacked him. Luckily, they were able to defend. Kiska then ran away with all his might. It's a good thing they got away, or who knows what would happen if they had fought. The puppet sword said that if they have worked together, they can easily take her down. That might be true, but even then, she was someone he didn't really want to fight. The puppet sword asked him why. He replied that he actually had a very good relationship with her in another timeline or something. The puppet sword said that maybe it was because he was just really into girls like her and teased him by saying how flushed his cheeks were. They moved forward. He's now in front of this familiar treasure chest. He opened it and obtained the skill called Appraisal. He remembered seeing this in the skill list before. However, it was rank D, so this might be a useless skill. He tried to appraise it, but he couldn't due to the insufficient level. He remembered that he had 1132 SB. He can easily leave 700 SB to level the puppet sword to level 3. He decided to level up Appraisal as much as he can. Then he tried using it on the puppet sword. The puppet sword heard him mumbling. Kiska said that he tried to appraise him, but it just gave him information he already knew, so it was pointless. The puppet sword told him he was such a pervert for appraising a beauty like her. Genuinely, Kiska was surprised that this sword is a beautiful girl, but then considered it as a joke. But really, he was curious about what kind of a person this sword will become. Now, they're in front of the dungeon's exit. The puppet sword saw how nervous he was and tried to lighten up his mood by cheering for him, which made him laugh. He got on serious mode and genuinely thanked the puppet sword, because if it wasn't for him, he wouldn't have made it this far. The puppet sword told him to save his thanks for later because the real challenge starts now. Their opponent was this giant centipede, the infamous SSS ranked monster. He used his appraisal skill and the information he got was this. The venom it sprays from within its body is so potent that it can even dissolve metal. Kiska knew that this was going to be tough. If he gets hit by that poison, it's a one-hit KO. So, with the autonomic functions of the pulsating greatsword, he will dodge the poison and attack. Well, he tried to, but he ended up flying towards the wall. This time, he jumped high and aimed above the centipedes, but its defense was good. The puppet sword asked if he's okay. Somehow, he is, but they have no choice. They have to use this to turn things around. The Great Wheel Slash. However, much to his disappointment, their attacks won't work on the giant centipede. The puppet sword suggested that they should move around a bit and look for a spot where they can land and attack. The joints and the legs are no good. If the legs are no good, then he aimed for the eyes. But all he could do was aim. He couldn't land an attack at all. At this point, he was hopeless. He was ready to silently accept death and use this for the next time. He was about to get himself killed, but the puppet sword defended him. The puppet sword reminded him that he promised him that he'll turn him into a human. Sure, he can redo things no matter how many times he dies, but the puppet sword he will meet after redoing things will not be the same puppet sword that he knows now. The promise with the current puppet sword can only be fulfilled in this timeline. He apologized to the puppet sword for worrying him a bit. Now, it's time to get serious. There must be a weak point on this giant centipede. There has to be a weak spot somewhere. He tried on its different body parts and finally he thinks he already found the weak point. However, if they do that, they might die. The puppet sword said that if they die charging forward, it can't be helped. He used his skill taunted to make the centipede open its mouth large enough for them. Using the swift dragon, they charged towards the inside of its mouth, slicing through its body from the inside. With a cut this deep, even its armor can be pierced. His eyes widened when he realized that he finally did it. He defeated the boss. He struggled and kept struggling, and now he has conquered the Katarov dungeon. A reward will be granted to the one who has defeated the great centipede. The reward was this blazing sword. He put down the puppet sword for a bit and tried swinging the blazing sword. He believes that this will surely be useful. If the puppet sword levels up to level 3 predator down the line, it might get out of his control. Getting this blazing sword might actually be pretty convenient. Now, it's time to move forward. He walked towards the teleportation circle. His days in the Katarov dungeon were long and painful, but now it's time to say goodbye. Finally, he's back in the village. Some guards noticed him and concluded that someone had already cleared the dungeon. Now that he was back at the surface, the puppet sword asked how he was feeling. He replied that the sky he saw after so long was too beautiful. At this point, it feels like he might be able to forgive everything. Even when he tried to use Ajaha as a sacrifice, he just ended up throwing up from guilt right then and there. Since then, he has always been worried if he was the kind of person who just can't kill others. The puppet sword asked if he didn't want to seek revenge anymore. But that's the complete opposite. Quickly, he leveled up the puppet sword into level 3. People gasped when it started devouring them one by one. There were people who were trying to get away, so he used the blazing sword to stop them. He asked where he could find Darga, but these two weren't saying a thing, so he had to threaten them more, saying how this blazing sword could burn anyone down in a single strike. He turned to the puppet sword and said that he got some errands to take care of, so he's free to go wild as he pleases. By then, Darga was rushing towards the scene. Darga was completely shocked upon seeing him. He said that he has no time dealing with Kiska because they're busy dealing with the monsters that appeared. He asked sinisterly what they would do if they learned that he's the one who caused those monsters to appear. Darga clearly had no idea, but before he could say much, Kiska cut his arm off. Before, he had been killed without being able to do anything. But now, he can easily kill them as 1, 2, 3. He was the one who conquered that dungeon, so he can defeat these guys even with his eyes closed. By now, Darga is ready on his knees, crying and begging for his life. Kiska told him that while he was clearing the dungeon, he had been thinking about him the whole time, about how he should take revenge on him, what kind of fleeting death he should give. Darga's face lit up when Kiska told him that he doesn't need to be worried at all because he won't kill him as easily as his eggheads. He vowed to kill him in the most horrible way he can think of. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you enjoy this manga. Have a good day.